Hello, everyone. Welcome to SPI's webinar on this Thursday afternoon. Hope you all are doing great. My name is Emily. I'm a marketing advisor here at SPI. I'm happy to be with you again in this month of September. Today's topic is basically we're going to talk about gas detection and how the Industry 4.0 and the digital transformation is becoming essential to help you better manage the safety of your workers. For those who don't know SPI, maybe it's your first time through our webinars. Let me introduce you quickly to our company. Basically, our mission is to be the single most valuable partner for companies that do value health and safety in their work environment. And how we do that is basically through providing training and expertise, PPEs in different risk category, which you can see on your screen. To discuss gas detection today and digital transformation, I have the privilege to be accompanied by one of our trainer advisor, Harry Van Leuvenkamp. Hi, Harry. How are you?
Very good
Did I
yourself.
pronounce it right?
Oh, yes. Harry Van
Oh,
Lodenkamp.
yeah,
Yes.
I got it. So, how are you?
I'm doing excellent.
Good. Can you introduce yourself to our audience and explain maybe quickly what you do at SPI?
Sure. I've been working as an industrial risk management now for the past 14 years. Before that, I was on an industrial emergency response team for 31 years, 25 years as a team leader. With SPI, I'm in my advisory capacity. I work with hazard analysis, creating documents for companies. As a trainer, I train attendants, entrants, permit issuers, supervisors, managers, rescuers. So everything to do with confined spaces, I work with that.
Yeah, you're a confined space master.
Yes.
That's how I like to call you here. Great. Thanks for joining us today, Harry.
You're welcome.
I have also the privilege to be accompanied by two specialists from Safety IO, which is an MSA subsidiary. Oh, I have always a hard time pronouncing that. Subsidiary. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Anyhow, I am Matt Di Lorenzo and Tim Speecher. You guys are on the line.
Yes, we are. We're excited to be here.
Good. Can you maybe just explain, or one of you explain what it is exactly that you guys do at Safety IO?
Certainly. Yeah. So, as a subsidiary of MSA, we focus on software tools that make it even more simplistic and compelling to take advantage of the gas detectors that MSA supplies to a variety of different markets within SPI's reach and also within the realm of the folks who are participating in the call today.
Great. Awesome. Thanks. So looking forward to be introduced to the Industry 4.0 later on. So today's program basically will first discuss with Harry the qualification training and the available tools related to gas detection. Afterwards, Tim and Matt are going to guide you guys towards the Industry 4.0 and, as I mentioned, the digital transformation of a gas detection program, as well as new technologies that are offered by MSA and IO Safety, and how it can help you improve the security of your within your organization. Sorry. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. The webinar will last 1 hour. A replay link will be available and emailed to you a few days after the webinar. And before I get the question, as usual, the PowerPoint will not be available. So if you do want to take notes, so grab a pen and a piece of paper right now. Also on your console, you do have a Q&A box, which is available to you if you want to ask any questions throughout the webinar. We sure do have a question period at the end, but to make it more interactive, it's better that you send your question as we go along. Also, when you do send your questions, if you could tell us which sector of activity you're in, that's always interesting for us to be responding according to your reality and not speculated. So before we start, we like to know a little bit about our audience. So we want to know, quick question, if you're up to date with the latest software available for gas detection. So very simple answer, yes or no. We'll give you a few seconds to pull, to type your answers. Doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. A few more seconds. Interesting. The results are coming. Awesome. So very interesting. Almost three-quarter of our audience is not familiar with the latest software available. So you will get the answers today. What's available? Thanks for participating. So basically, Harry, maybe let's start with how important is gas detection still in industries in 2020?
Yeah, the importance is enormous. The importance of this is enormous. So, in the vast majority of industries, workers can be exposed to different contaminants. Gas detection allows us to, one, ensure that normal atmospheric conditions are maintained in the environment in which workers must perform their tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, to identify the presence of contaminants that cannot be detected by our sensors, and also to warn us in case of danger. In fact, we could summarize it two different ways. We're concerned mostly with safety and occupational hygiene. We will see later in this webinar with Matt and Tim the significant evolution in gas detection and in technology. If what surrounds the gas detection was not important, it would have stagnated. It would have stood still. On the
Mm-hmm.
contrary, we're seeing that this is really not the case. It's really become quite evolved and something that we should all be aware of. On the screen, you can see four of several possible situations where gas detection is used to ensure safety when entering a confined space, which is my expertise, my world. In a specific place where you want to accomplish a task, for example, welders or people that have to work in specific areas, then you may want to perform a gas detection before you go into those areas. A hazardous work area where there may be several workers and you want to
Mm-hmm.
protect the other workers as well. And if it's used, also used to detect leaks. There are many applications where leak detection becomes very important. In fact, what I especially want to point out to you is on this slide is that the people who prepare, handle, use, or wear gas detectors must have the necessary qualifications.
Yeah, you raise a good question here, Harry. According to you, gentlemen, what are the necessary qualifications for the personnel who must use or handle the equipment? But before you go there, we do have another interactive question. So before you answer, I want to know if you, our audience, believe that you have the necessary knowledge to carry out the sampling and correctly interpret the results obtained. So we'll give you a few seconds just before. Very easy answer: yes, no, or I'm not sure. So we'll see the results. It's always interesting. A few more seconds. Don't be shy. Yes, no, or I'm not sure. Great. So, yeah, almost our entire audience is either not sure or not confident they have the necessary knowledge. So, glad you're here with us today. So, I'll ask you the question again in terms of training, Harry.
Okay, so when it comes to the training, we're talking usually about two different types of users and therefore two different types of training. First one, technical training is mainly applied to people who need to calibrate, verify, modify alarms, repair, or maintain devices. We all want to entrust these tasks to competent staff. This training is often delivered by MSA directly according to the specific training programs.
Yeah.
Secondly, applied training mainly targets other types of skills. People who need to use a gas detector to identify, assess, control hazards should also be qualified. Organizations invest a lot in equipment, but little of the qualifications of the personnel who carry out and testing them. So we need to develop the people who actually have to use them because they want to be able to interpret these numbers and these readings.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the training is limited to word of mouth. So what we get in reality is on the job training or just some indications of how to use it. So the consequences are major mistakes can get in when testing contaminants. And these mistakes can affect people's lives and put workers at risk.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of workers are put on the spot. They get hired. Yeah, okay, we'll train you a little bit, and they're put there. And some people that
That's
I
right.
want to keep my job, but I'm scared. Like
That's
I'm
right.
not sure I'm safe
I'll
here.
teach you the essentials, and that's all you
Yeah,
need to know.
exactly.
That's right. Yeah. So
Unfortunately,
yeah, sometimes it's a little bit lacking.
yes.
So in matters of health and safety, and especially with concerning regulations and standards, The terms competent persons or qualified persons are often used. So we want to make sure that we're competent or we're a qualified person. So the training is really essential when it comes to developing these two different types of people. It's not just word of mouth that's going to do the job. So, especially when we're talking about best practices, I mean, we talk about the different kinds of training courses and such as that. But when we're getting into the real nitty gritty of it, we want to maintain best practices because that's really where the where we're going when with all this. Often by asking a few questions, we are able to know if the person is in fact competent.
Yeah, I've heard stories from you, Harry, and from Fabien, our colleague. Say, I got there, I just asked a couple questions, and I said, okay,
That's right.
we're not
Okay,
ready for this training. We're ready
we got
to the
we got a
basics.
we
Yeah,
got a long road ahead of
yeah,
us.
absolutely. And it's better you realize that than, be involved in a fatal accident. So in terms of technical training, Matt, you'll explain what MSA is offering.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Harry was referring to, right, we have competent user training. Sometimes it's called RITE training, RITE training, and it's designed specifically for the folks who are going to take care of the devices, the detectors, and ensure that they're ready to work. Right. So what falls into that umbrella? You have bump testing and calibrating the detector, understanding the readings, excuse me, on the actual face of the detector, interpreting the information around the dates that come from the detector and the sensors. What are the different alarm states that they might encounter, both around the sensors picking up background gases, as well as other types of things that could drive alarms on the instrument. All of that bundled in with diagnoses and taking apart, reassembling, changing out sensors and displays, all the things that you would want your technical personnel to understand about the detector itself. And paired with that, we have a component that ties in the software tools that they can use to help keep an eye on those things so that they won't be in the dark. But as those devices are tested, maybe by the folks who are using them in the field through their calibration stands, they can see that automatically and be more proactive in the management of those assets.
Yeah, and if I could
Absolutely.
add just quickly, these detectors come often with all kinds of pictograms and symbols, and I think the user really needs to know what these symbols mean.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. They try to squeeze so many things onto small screens, regardless of what the supplier of the detector is. And it is important to know what all those symbols can mean and indicate about the health of that device, so you don't send those out into the field when they're not ready.
Yep. And just so you know, at SPI, we are an authorized service provider for MSA's product. So, we do diagnostics and repairs, calibration, rentals for any gas detectors. But in terms of MSAs, we also are the authorized provider to the warranty service. So if you need any help, you're unsure or whatnot, then we have a whole department, and that service is provided across Canada. So don't hesitate to reach out. So going back to the applied training, Harry, SPI does training and
Oh yes, we certainly do. From our point of view, the training is essential, and it's aimed at the customers who use the gas detectors. And although it's essential, this training is not limited by simply knowing the operation or the characteristics and the particulars of the instruments used, and whether it is suitable for gases that one wishes to test, such as the response time, the time it takes for the instrument to display a correct reading, which we often refer to as the T90. This time is increased if I use a pump in a certain length. So we're going to not just wait the 30 seconds. We may have to wait a little bit more as well for before we have a stable reading. What is the range of temperature that the detector can be used when you're working in the middle of the winter, like in an industrial or municipal situation? There may be some days you just can't use a detector outside. And it touches on other aspects as well, in particular, the knowledge of atmospheric hazards, understanding the environment to be tested or evaluated, choosing the right devices according to the environment to be sampled or evaluated is very, very important. The appropriate methods of testing, for example, working on top access confined spaces where you have different density of gases where you have to deal with, or when you're going a horizontal where you may have to reach further into a confined space, so you need to be able to test further in as well. Then there's the interpretation of the results. This is something that a lot of people aren't aware of, that sometimes when we say, well, as long as the detector doesn't alarm, well, we're safe. It's not the case. Sometimes when we have certain values appear, even if it doesn't go into alarm, we may want to interpret that as a sign of danger. So we want to be able to understand that. So, and the other thing is that some of these devices, a lot of these devices are exposed to different types of chemical interferences or other types of interferences. In fact, the interpretation of the results is a key element in our training. The user must be able to question the values obtained. So to make a judgment call, confirm that the values obtained reflect the airspace to be tested or its environment. You must understand that one cannot rely solely on the alarm thresholds, because they do not always guarantee absolute safety. In closing, users should understand that there may be possibly several sources of interference, different types of chemicals or like alcohols, for example. Often detector sounds and we don't know the reason why. It doesn't make sense. So sometimes we have a negative reading even, so that makes no sense whatsoever. So these are usually considered chemical interferences. There are known interferences. I mean, the manufacturer sheet can inform you on some of these, but sometimes we learn them on the job also, some of the chemicals we use in our confined spaces, which may lead to a false positive or a false negative, as you can see on the image on the screen there.
Yeah, the red should be in the on the -20 and it's below.
That's right. That negative reading cannot exist.
Yeah.
So it's
It's not -20 outside that Fabien said earlier.
That's right,
I thought it
exactly.
was, yeah.
That's right. So to facilitate training, MSA offers interesting tools. These are the online simulators. They're also available for some newer models and also for the Galaxy stations, the docking stations. We use these online simulators. Often users have a fear of using these detectors and the devices and navigating the different screens. So they're not too sure how to get through them. They fear maybe altering the device or damaging the device. Our consultants and trainers use these online simulators to help our clients, even at a distance. For example, Fabien was dealing with a client who called in a bit of a panic from all the way up in Fermont in northern Quebec. He was having a challenge with a detector. He needed to be able to bump test and calibrate it, and he was just not getting it done. So with the online simulator, he was able to guide him through it. Within minutes, the guy was able to do it. So
And
it's a
yeah,
very, very useful tool, this online simulator.
absolutely. I was in this in the office with Fabien. It was like 10 to 5, and that simulator really saved the whole application you needed to do the day after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, the new MSA devices actually do have the Bluetooth technology, which opens up a whole new world of possibilities for data control.
Yeah, and beyond the Bluetooth, that's what Tim and Matt are going to talk about as we are moving on to the industry 4.0. But before we get there, what we're going to be discussing with you, Matt and Tim, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it pretty much you're going to summarize how the industry 4.0 and basically what are the main challenges for workers' safety in this era. You'll compare it to with as Ari mentioned before, the evolution of gas detection, also, and how the digital transformation and the technology uh, is actually changing workers in industrial safety through with the software you're going to be presenting. So, and obviously how to get started and who to reach out. So, I will let you introduce MSA and Safety IO.
Excellent, thanks. So, many of you may know MSA, and I'm sure many of you have yet to be exposed to MSA. So, MSA is a safety equipment manufacturer that has been around since 1914, and in fact, our first big commercial product was co-developed with Thomas Edison in 1914 for the mining industry. And MSA has matured considerably since then, and we offer a host of different types of personal protective equipment, as well as infrastructure protection equipment in the gas detection space, as well as head, eye, face, hearing, respiratory, and fall protection. And so MSA has been around for a long time in the safety space. And just recently, in 2018, the executive leadership of MSA said, you know what, based on what we're learning from the market and learning from customers and learning from our partners like SPI, we really need to understand how we can offer additional solutions that take safety beyond what's being worn to what type of information can be forwarded from those devices to a place that can drive learning, can drive accountability, can drive training, things like that. And that's where Safety IO came from. So we're really excited to be here and to have a chance to talk with everybody today.
Thanks, Matt. So I'm Tim. I'm the data strategy manager with Safety IO. So I'm the data guy, and my goal today is to help kind of set the stage where we are in the industry, and how we got there and how it can help in your safety programs. So we're in the middle of what people are calling Industry 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution. So what does that mean? Technology, as we all know, is advancing at a rapid pace, and devices are connected in your home all the time. 10 years ago, all you had was a thermostat and a doorbell. Today, you have smart thermostats, smart doorbells, smart coffee makers. You could turn your lights on or garage door, open your garage door from your cell phone. So all those technologies are starting to infiltrate the industrial space. So that's really enabling a lot of different technologies that you see here. Autonomous robots, smart sensors, augmented reality, cloud computing, and other things like that. They really enable us to do more in the industrial space today and in the future. But two of the big buzzwords that we're going to talk about, or that you might hear about a lot, are up on the screen here. And so before we go further, I'm not crazy about buzzwords or buzz phrases. They're typically ambiguous and can mean something completely different to different people. And for some of the more common ones, sometimes people are afraid to ask what they are because they feel like they should just know what they mean. So I just want to, again, for the sake of getting us all from a common starting ground, let's talk about two of the big ones. So big data. Big data is everywhere. It's important. It's going to make our lives better. It'll bring world peace. Just big data. Everybody's looking for big data to solve our problems. All it really is the concept of storing, analyzing, and then drawing insight from large amounts of data. The way that a company like Safety IO or other software companies take that big data, and they're the ones drawing the insights, and then provide those insights to you in smaller chunks, what I like to call small data within the applications. They're meaningful, they're actionable, and you don't have to spend days or hours sifting through a lot of data. IIoT is the industrial Internet of Things. So as I was just talking about, devices in your house, the smart thermostats, the smart doorbells, that is the Internet of Things. This is just a quick buzzword of expanding it into the industrial space. So what kind of outcomes is Industry 4.0 providing today, just in general in the industrial space? So it's helping companies optimize their processes, better utilize the assets they have, increase labor productivity, optimize their supply chain, and even increase revenue by being able to offer after-sales service. These are most of the common things that we see for any digitalization project today, but improving safety outcomes is starting to gain attention in corporations that have a safety-first culture. Now, Matt's going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges you may be facing today in your company or in your safety program.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So, a little bit of a history lesson here. This made me think back to my middle school and high school days in history class, wondering when we would ever use this information. Well, today's the day. So, if you look back 150 years, the second industrial revolution is when you really saw the introduction of electric power, assembly lines, things like that. And at the tail end of that is when the baby boomer generation was really coming to the forefront, when they were being born and growing into their careers and things like that. Now by 19
yeah, Harry's waving here.
yeah. And in 1970, right on the heels of the baby boomer introduction, you had Gen X, and you also had the third industrial revolution, where you saw the introduction of computers and digital equipment shifting from analog approaches to more digital information. And I am also part of that kind of third industrial revolution in the millennial space, although I'm remiss to admit that sometimes. I am also part of that group. And
Yes,
now,
I am too, Matt. So
yes, and but it's interesting because, you know, as we look at this graph and we look at the introduction of the fourth industrial revolution with all the technology and mobility and connectivity and promises of the big data world peace that Tim was referring to, you have yet another generation. So you have four generations of people who are working together across massive transition in how work is accomplished, and that can create some stress, right? And so a big part of the challenges that are faced today in the safety space are around not just the widgets that are changing, the technology that's changing, but also the people groups that are interacting and needing to communicate effectively. All right, so let's expand upon that a little bit more. So in addition to the generational gap, what Tim and myself and the Safety IO team has been learning is, you know, as more of the companies reach around the globe, you have multicultural teams that are working together. You have the interest in data, even if you're not collecting it well or organizing it well, there's an interest in acquiring information and figuring out how to organize that and put that to work. And you know, a lot of us are faced with a work from home scenario. You know, we were planning to be all together for this
yeah.
webinar, but obviously the pandemic and other situations have limited our ability to do that. So how do we help people work more effectively from remote locations? All right, so with that, I'd like to hand it over to Tim to talk about how are we doing in worker safety?
Thanks, Matt. So yeah, how are we doing in worker safety? So you can see on the screen here, according to the International Labor Organization, 2.78 million workers die from occupational accidents, or work-related diseases. And then another 374 million suffer from non-fatal accidents. I don't have to tell you, about the impact of these numbers. In addition to the human suffering, the loss of life, there's a tremendous economic cost in these numbers, whether it's absenteeism, lost productivity, poor community relations, or affected stock prices. Again, there's progress has been made in the past years in industrial safety, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. So as safety professionals, you have to be focused on your biggest safety goal and can't be dependent on clipboards and workers, being accountable for themselves necessarily. You're spinning a lot of plates. You need full visibility into worker safety holistically in order to be compliant with safety regulations. Control is key and details do matter. So that's why you're here today, right? So why learn about Industry 4.0 and why now? Industry 4.0 isn't just about manufacturing efficiencies. It has the potential to improve safety outcomes in your organizations. The insights we're going to get from big data analytics in safety will provide insights to you and to others, and those insights could lead to safety improvements for your workers. So is there a better way to manage these challenges? Yes. So we can rely on technology to help us in these spaces. So data analysis can help reduce or eliminate human error and help create a more comprehensive approach to worker safety. Technological advances, they're really affecting the world in different ways. And when it comes to industries, it's not any different. The insights are going to allow you to improve existing processes and make you more efficient. Gas detection has also come a long way, and Matt's going to go back and give you another history lesson here in gas detection.
Yeah, I'm really putting on my professor hat today, which is
It's
a
very
new
interesting.
place for me.
I
Yeah.
actually like history now.
All right, good. So, as Tim was saying, there are changes happening from a technology and data standpoint, uh, all throughout our space. And I just wanted to again show you how things are progressing and how quickly they're moving along, even just within one kind of niche category in gas detection. Um, so, in the second industrial revolution, you were seeing folks using canaries and other types of winged animals to find hazards before they became effective. They affected workers down in dangerous places. And in the 1920s, MSA launched their first carbon monoxide monitor. And then after that, you started seeing combustible sensors and things like that. Now, it took until 1950 for the multi-gas detector to come along, which many of us see across the industrial space because they give you so much flexibility and so much awareness across the really four key exposure risks with combustible gases, oxygen, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen sulfide. And then they became wearable and they transitioned from being analog to digital during the third industrial revolution, and they started integrating logs. So it wasn't just about providing that awareness to the person wearing the device, but it became about what can we learn after an incident or after an exposure based on what the instrument saw or that detector saw while it was at work. Now, stepping into the fourth industrial revolution, you're taking those logs that are collected on the individual instruments, and instead of pulling the data one by one or looking at them across a few different types of spreadsheets, you see the introduction of automated testing and the ability to gather the test information as well as the logs on those devices to drive better types of information and better awareness of what's happening with the gas detection fleets. And now you're, in addition to that, you're seeing detectors that can connect directly to the internet and provide that information in real time, whether it's through a gateway device like a cell phone or directly from the unit itself. That gives you a much more proactive real-time awareness of what's happening while a worker is potentially at risk. So in essence, as Tim has been saying, right, the devices are becoming smarter, their response time is getting faster, and it's allowing for safer workforces. So progress has certainly been made, as he noted, but we still believe, based on conversations with people around the world, there's room for improvement.
Thanks,
So
Matt.
what does that journey look like, Tim? Why don't we start off with that?
Yeah, so I mean, we've given you a lot to think about. We've set the stage. We've talked about a lot of history. Um, you know, Industry 4.0 can be this big nebulous thing, and there's so many different ways you can approach your safety program. So let's dial it back and let's start the journey, right? So how do you get to where you need to be? So why does data matter in all of this? So when it comes to putting together a compliant safety program, there's really four components here. And I'm going to focus on gas detection because that's where we have a lot of experience and that's where we're focusing on right now for Industry 4.0. So the first one, making sure workers have the right protection for their job. Do you know if workers have the right sensors given the gases that they're working around? Are you using area monitors in a confined space? How are you even tracking this now? Are you using pen and paper? Are you using spreadsheets? The second one, making sure that that equipment is inspected and working properly. Do you know if your detectors have been bump tested and calibrated? Are all the sensors ready or are they end of life? What about preventative maintenance? If you could be proactive and repair or replace a piece of equipment before it breaks, how much downtime are you going to save? The third, making sure that the worker is actually using that equipment properly. Are they even turning the detectors on? Are they ignoring gas alarms? Are they pressing the button? Are they turning the detector off when it goes into alarm? Are there sub-alarm exposures that are happening that you're not even aware of or that the workers aren't even aware of? And then the fourth piece of compliance is record keeping, right? So all the records that your detectors are collecting, all the incident reports that your putting together after an event happens, you know, how are you keeping that information today? If you had to locate an incident from 2017, are you able to do that? I know in the States, OSHA's requirement is to keep incident history for 30 years after an employee leaves. Cloud computing or cloud solutions help make this an easy scenario. Everything is stored there. So small data is what helps drive all of this. And these concepts will allow us to analyze data from the connected devices and be a main driver to ensure accountability across all four of these components. At a minimum, it's going to give you some actionable insights to have a compliant gas detection program. So with all that in mind, so like how do you get started? What's next? Matt's going to talk about why portable gas detection is a natural starting point on having an Industry 4.0 enabled safety program.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and there's not a lot of mystery behind this, especially as you know, we kind of laid out the story. When you look at a gas detector, it's a piece of electronic equipment. It's capable of recording information. It plays a really important role in workplace safety and worker safety, as well as the work sites, the scenarios that Harry was describing earlier. There you have and offer relatively easy connectivity, whether it's through the test banks in certain scenarios or directly from the devices themselves. They don't require a lot of extra tools or capabilities in order to establish that easy connection. Number three, you know, especially if you're testing the devices with regularity, maintaining compliance around calibrations and things like that, the data that's harvested will be accurate. Now, like Harry was saying, there are going to be certain interferences and things like that that may affect the readings, but wouldn't you rather know what's happening so you can learn over time what might be going on and allow you to troubleshoot those things rather than handling them on a one-by-one basis and never having a chance to learn from those? And number four goes hand in hand with number three, right? The data is there. It's available to you, but it may not have been easy to access in the past. So the convenience factor is there now too. And finally, as Tim was alluding to, with software platforms that are cloud hosted, this brings in not only the convenience of being able to easily store the information and interact with the information, but it gives you the benefits of doing that from anywhere. So as many of us are homebound, or many of us, when the pandemic has eased a bit and we start to travel again, you have the ability to get to this information that can change the way you manage your safety program and your detection program in general really significantly. So another reason why gas detection we would recommend it as a great starting point is because it has an immediate impact on safety. And these are just some statistics. And I'm hoping that none of you have been affected in your work or with colleagues or anything like that by an incident like this. But it is stuff that happens. It's a real risk. These gas hazards are a concern, and Harry was alluding to the fact that many people wearing the devices aren't really prepared to understand what's happening when a device goes into alarm or what they should do and what it means. And that can lead to real issues. And so that's why we think it's a really easy place to start, because the information is there and the ability to drive accountability thereafter and drive that training that changes mindsets and changes cultures is right at your fingertips. All right, so as an EHS manager, as a safety manager, as an industrial hygienist, how do you help your company transform from an industry 3.0 focus to an industry 4.0 type of attitude? Number one, you want to get organizational buy-in. And this doesn't mean that everybody has to come along with you, right? You want to find key champions in your organization, people you trust, people who understand the value of transforming a safety program. Find an executive champion or a director level champion. Find someone in the IT organization. IT has transitioned dramatically over the past 10, 15 years from a no cloud, never ever, locally hosted data only to wow, we really should be leveraging these cloud computing capabilities and storage capabilities. And so they get it. They've been through many of these IT organizations that we work with have been through these changes already. And there's a perception in many cases within safety management, within plant management, within procurement, that, oh boy, don't talk about cloud. We're not allowed cloud. But then as soon as you bring the IT team to the table, they're like, wait a second, we can totally do this. So I would really recommend getting close to someone within the IT organization who can help you here. And then I would also lean on those Gen Z folks, right? And it's something they've grown up with. They've grown up in a connected environment. It's harder for some of us who didn't grow up with quite so much technology at our fingertips. They really appreciate tools like this, and they're going to be the next leaders within your organization. So the more that you can connect with them and support what they're trying to do from a technology standpoint, the better off you will be. All right, so then once you have your champion group, we really encourage you to take those first steps. And in some cases, it's not steps, it's more like little crawls. Find some place that you can start. We talked about gas detection, but we don't want you to be afraid of the change. Find an area of your safety program that you can readily drive some type of impact with connectivity. Gas detection may not be the right fit for you, but there's got to be something within your safety sphere where you can do a small experiment with support from the people around you and yourself without making an overly large commitment, both from a time and financial standpoint. And lastly, we want to encourage you to find the right partner to help engage you on this path. And from there, of course, selfishly, we would argue that, MSA from a hardware standpoint, Safety IO from a software standpoint, really are a great partner if gas detection is a good place for you to start, if you see that as a low-hanging fruit opportunity within your safety program. And I would also argue that, a partner that you have in SPI gives you tremendous value as well. So when you're looking at the things that Tim was talking about from the data standpoint, right? How do you leverage the information? How do you organize it? How do you translate that? Those are things that Safety IO can help you with. SPI can also be part of that journey with the software tools that we have available. When you're using the grid platform, which is what we call our software as a service platform for gas detectors, the SPI can be part of that conversation, part of that authorized service component that really helps take some of the burden off of your shoulders when it comes to the detection program, so you can focus on your bigger goals. And from there, as that data comes in from your devices, you now have insights, so you can be proactive. You can plan ahead. You're not constantly feeling like you're in a reactive state or being surprised by things. Get that maintenance under control, eliminate some of the risk of human error, and get that training under control. Ensure that people are ready, and ultimately drive the behaviors that you really want and change and impact the culture around you. So with that, I just want to leave with, this very, terse quote, right? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Change is intimidating. I can tell you from personal experience, we described at the beginning that MSA is 106 years old. Safety IO is 2 years old, and I can tell you that we've had to find and work through the process of identifying champions, just like I talked about earlier within your safety program. You can parallel the similar steps that we've taken to move the needle and really help move your safety program forward. I'm confident you can. We've been doing it within our organization, and there are a ton of opportunities, given all the different things that you have on your plate, to pick one, focus on it, and see how you can move your safety program forward. And we're excited to hear how you do that, and whether it's gas detection or not. We are compelled by what we've learned to share the excitement about the benefits that come with the willingness to change and try new things and to take steps to learn. So I just want to wish you the best of luck as you look for those and offer our assistance where it makes sense. And I know SPI is happy to do the same.
Absolutely, Matt. Thanks. You really summarized well the the changing concerns or the changing paths. I mean, digital transformation is not easy at all, but like you said, SPI is a great partner in collaboration with MSA and IO Safety. I will make a quick change in the presentation. Just maybe Harry summarize, the important elements or that we should be considering.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear that anybody who works in confined space that the gas detector is really an essential tool. But we've actually used this device in other settings, and I have a really great example where we're a company here in Montreal, a consortium that's building the new REM, the elevated trains that are going through, and they had to
Mm,
go through a landfill site. Now, there's a lot of unknowns about going through a landfill site because there's a lot of gas trapped in there. So they needed to know, are they being safe? So I said, well, let's start with a safety program with the gas detector. What we need is more data. So I
mm,
set up a program for them using gas detectors. And so they were able to develop a program with the data that was produced from all these interventions. So the gas detector can be used in other settings as well. So when it comes to working with gas detectors, you should really have your gas detection practices evaluated. So you need to speak to a specialist on that, get advice on your needs. Don't hesitate to ask for help. I mean, you may have some challenges that you have in front of you. Well, there are people around who actually can put forward some ideas on this. There's always a solution to a problem or a challenge. I hate to use the word problem, but a challenge, because these are all challenges, and there's usually a solution to these. We are here to guide you on your way. We are here to make to clarify things for you.
absolutely. And as you mentioned in the program, adding the IO safety grid. I have a blank of the name of your program. Matt, can you just clarify?
Yeah, you got it. It's the Safety IO grid services. Yep.
Oh, I got it. Okay, perfect. Combining those will help companies, like Matt and Tim said before, to plan ahead and to prevent injuries. So I will go back to the change that I made because we do want to know if after what you've learned today, do you need our help to explain you what our applied trainings we have, or would you need any? Would you like to have a demonstration of the Safety IO Grid software from MSA and IO Safety? Would you like to meet with an SPI representative to assess your needs or to learn more about our technical services for MSA products? Or do you don't have any special needs? So we will ask, you can pick as many as you want. So we'll give you a few seconds to answer. And again, the intention is to be your partner, to help you, to guide you through whatever your issues or your challenges you're facing, just like you said. I see Harry with a big smile from 2 meters away. Don't worry, folks. So we'll give you a few seconds. Don't be shy. Perfect. All right. Thank you guys for your active participation. And it's time for questions now. If you have any questions, type it in the chat box. If you can write from which sector of activity you are, that would also be great. So we'll give you a few minutes to type in your questions. I have to say it was well summarized. It was pretty clear. And if that's the case, then great. And like I've mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this presentation was recorded. Therefore, you will receive the replay link in a couple of days. So if you want to present that to your company, to your colleagues, or to your boss, or to your OHS manager or whatnot, then by all means do. I think it was well summarized of how the industry 4.0 is here, and we better get on the train. So there's no questions. So I think it's you guys were clear. Like I said, if there's any, feel free to email them. You have our the email right there. Oh, there's a question from Sadie. We have multiple gas detectors on site with your Bluetooth and cloud software. Do all devices connect? That's a good question.
So yeah,
I guess.
there are a couple of approaches. The easiest approach and where most of our customers start is by um, connecting the test banks where all the tests are performed to the grid account so that you have a good starting point for understanding all this new information that's coming in and how it can help your safety program. Usually the next step after that is then connecting those devices via Bluetooth so you have the real-time, live monitoring component. That also goes for the area monitoring tools that are available from MSA. So yes, it's possible. It just depends on which devices you have, and if they're outfitted with the Bluetooth technology that allows for that to happen, or cellular technology, depending on the supplier, to get real-time information from those devices. We also encourage people to again take that crawl, walk, run approach so that you're not overwhelmed by all this new information, because as soon as you're getting real-time information, that changes your processes and you have to keep watch over those things, and you want to make sure that you're not adding a new type of burden and a new type of overhead to an already very busy and interrupt driven lifestyle and professional environment that you work in.
Thank you. So
Yeah, thank you
again,
for the question.
yeah, it was a good question. If you guys have any other questions, just so you know, in the meantime, we have an upcoming webinar on respiratory protection at the end of the month. So communicate with us to register, or if you have any questions. And I believe there's no more questions coming in. Let me double verify here. No, I think we're good on questions. So thank you, Harry, Matt, and Tim, for this very interesting presentation. I think you've summarized well, the importance of gas detection and the importance of the digital transformation within a gas detection program. So thank you so much for being present. It was great having you.
Thank you. We really appreciate the opportunity, and it was nice to wear my professor hat for a day. So thanks for taking me back to all that good content that my history teacher swore would be valuable one day.
Well, it was interesting. I have to say, I wasn't really fond of history class back in the days, but today was.
I know more and more about history now than I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
No, thank you for having us.
Anytime. So thanks to our audience for joining today. I hope the presentation did meet your expectations. So again, our famous survey, I invite you to answer. It's a few questions, but it's always in order for us to help to improve and also to tackle your needs and make sure we do plan ahead for any other webinars, upcoming webinars with subjects that are a concern or a challenge for you. Finally, I invite you to subscribe to our newsletter. Check it out also on our blog. We have a lot of information there. And on our website, we do have an event tab, and you can see all of the upcoming webinars. And you also can register directly through this page. So we hope to have you on board on September 30th. And on behalf of SPI, MSA, and IO Safety, I wish you a great day and be safe, everybody. Bye-bye.